Hello and welcome to Cosmic Dream Sanctuary. This is a presentation in the Missing Time series. This presentation is called Missing Time Found. Don't worry, it's just a dream. It's an inquiry into missing times, dreams, and hypnosis. It is performed by me, Daniel Rekshan. I hold a bachelor's degree in the Western Liberal Arts from St. John's College, a master's degree in East-West Psychology from the California Institute of Integral Studies, a certificate in hypnotherapy in the spiritual counseling modality of depth hypnosis, a certificate in Beyond Quantum Healing, and I'm ordained as a minister in the Universal Life Church. And I will say I am a lifelong dreamer and experiencer, and I do have experience of missing time. And so I just want you to know that I am not flippant about the ontological or existential status of these experiences. I am simply putting forward the hypothesis that missing time and hypnosis on missing time is more dreamlike than memory. And there are certain implications around the dreamlike status of these experiences. So here's an overview of what we'll talk about. We will talk about missing time experiences as dreamlike in nature. I'll point out that it is frequently remembered as a dream, happens at night, shares qualities with other sleep and dream phenomena, and that dreams are an archetype of contact. So missing time, the archetype of missing time isn't alien abduction, it is dreams. And every single person experiences missing time related to dreams every single night. There's a lot of strangeness and bizarreness in dreams, and there's ontological significance associated with dream experiences. Dreams are psionic in nature. They involve ETs, UFOs, and extraterrestrials. They have ontological significance. And shamanic dreaming, which is a practice of relating to the greater world in the intact cultures, such as the shamanic dreaming cultures, it mediates the human and non-human world and also defines reality. And so then we'll finally consider hypnosis as a dream practice, and we'll look at the current practice of hypnosis. We'll explore a little bit about hypnotic induction of dream states, and we'll talk about ontological shock as a mechanism for memory repression, and we'll talk about rites of passage as through vision quest as the kind of archetypal journey of hypnosis, and as finally, we'll come to the conclusion that earth stewardship is the outcome. So this is being good stewards of the earth and being kind to each other is the outcome of all of this stuff around missing time. That's the purpose. And if our working with non-human intelligences or missing time or dreams does not lead to us being in a kind relationship with each other and the earth, then we are doing something wrong. Because dreams lead to healing, insight, transformation. They lead to connection with the natural world. So why is this important? Dreams happen mostly at night. 1/3 of our life, it happens for 1/3 of our life. It's mysterious and they are potent. And missing time actually may shed light on dreaming. So I'll say that again. The extraterrestrial contact phenomenon, the abduction phenomenon, as expressed through the missing time formula, may actually shed light on dreaming. So dreaming happens 1/3 of our night, 1/3 of our life. We don't know why we do it. Everyone does dreaming. Everyone participates in dreaming. Not everyone remembers it. Most people sort of gap between falling asleep and waking up, and that is literally missing time in which highly strange behaviors unfold that sometimes involve interaction with non-human intelligences. The same can be said for extraterrestrial contact experiences. So they're very similar, and it's just meaningful to explore. Dreams are sources of healing, insight, and transformation. So they can lead to incredible discoveries. They can lead to healing. They are incredible things. And therefore, when we look at missing time experience and the missing time regression hypnosis as a dream experience, we can assume the same qualities, the non-harmful qualities of dreams, the dreams as source of healing, insight, and transformation that apply to those experiences of missing time. So psionic dreams have both prophetic and ontological significance. So psionic dreams, meaning telepathic dreams, shared dreams, visitation dreams. These are the dreams that inspired, discovery of the structure of the atom in the case of Niels Bohr, or Mendelev's organization of chemicals into the the elemental tables, right? So these are huge scientific discoveries that come from dreams. Historic events unfold because of prophetic dreams. We're all familiar with the formula of an oracle giving prophecy and heroes taking action on it. And if it ends well, it's a tragedy. If it ends well, it's a comedy. If it ends poorly, it's a tragedy. But we all see the impact of prophetic experiences upon history through those lenses. Another thing why this is important is that we may be inappropriately assigning objective significance to non-dual and ontologically generative experiences. So we are treating mythology and narrative experiences like they are historic records or historic transcripts or something like that, when in reality that's an inappropriate assignment of objectivity, and it doesn't need to happen because the mythic actually in its own right is meaningful, is a way of knowledge, and actually has ontological generative principles at work. So we relate to mythological things in a way that generates meaning and even objective knowledge, as in the case of the dreams of Descartes inspiring the scientific method. But we aren't saying those dreams of Descartes are part of the scientific data. Rather, they inform the scientific worldview. In the same way, the mythological narratives that we relate to through dreams and missing time experience may then inform the logical expression of this, logical understanding of this world through the establishment of irrational categories. And any category of perception, I say, are actually irrational at some level. You have to assume certain premises, and narrative mythological data are sources of that premise. And finally, dreams do mediate the human and non-human world. So that's how we see dreams working in intact shamanic dreaming cultures. And I say any culture that wasn't impacted by the empires of colonialism and consumerism and materialism, these are more intact cultures, and they see the role of dreaming as the mediation of the human and non-human world. And therefore, we might even deduce that the ambassadorial activities of non-human intelligences entering our world, aka extraterrestrial beings in UFO spacecraft, that activity will be mediated through dreams and dreamlike experiences. And that's what we see when we look to the data associated with experiencers of this field. They say they have telepathic dreams. They say they have strange dreams. They talk about these things like dreams. And so I say here it's important to study this thing because these dreams may actually be the arena, the embassy of ET contact. So I'm offering a new hypothesis, and it is that the UAP, UFO, non-human intelligence, extraterrestrial, missing time experience is a particular type or manifestation of a universal phenomena that is associated with dreams. And that universal phenomena is you experience every morning when you wake up and you cannot remember the 3 to 4 REM dreams you had during the night. That's nothing to say about the non-REM dreams or the dreamlike cognition that happens during sleep onset and coming up and out of the sleep cycle. But you have probably a dozen different dreaming experiences throughout the night. You don't remember most of it. You sort of gap from sleep to waking up. That is missing time. And the contents of that missing time are very similar to the contents of the missing time experiences associated with a UFO and UAP phenomena. We know that dreams do mediate human and non-human interaction, And we see human and non-human interaction in the extraterrestrial contact phenomena. So that kind of makes sense that there is a missing time / low dream recall faculty. And I would be curious to see the prevalence of memory of lucid dreamers in the ET contact phenomena. That's another study we could do, right? So I'm saying these things are all ontologically significant in some way. We have to figure out objectively, subjectively, intersubjectively, non-dually, how are they ontologically significant? But without a doubt, they are ontologically significant, meaning that the contents of these missing time experiences really do define the objective status of our world together. A consequence of this new hypothesis is that hypnosis is not memory enhancement, nor is it regression. So this is really important to understand because everybody except for Dolores Cannon and John Mack just flat out assumes that hypnosis enhances memory and memory is what was repressed or put away during the missing time experience. This is not the case. We don't know if there's even any memory associated with the missing time. It might actually be generated like a dream experience or something like that upon the reflection on that. And that observation may have quantum entanglement, quantum impacts to the ontological status of this world, right? So it's not memory enhancement, but it's something that looks to me like a psionic faculty that hasn't been explored in the context of science, right? So hypnosis is a dream state. This is something we do know. So hypnosis is poor at establishing itself at memory enhancement, but very good at inducing trance that is something like a nap and a psychological state of connection with the subconscious or the unconscious mind and the imaginal realms of experience. It looks like dreams. It feels like dreams. Therefore, it is a particular expression of a universal dreaming phenomena. And then finally, I'm saying that missing time and the hypnosis associated with missing time presents a rite of passage involving ontological shock and its resolution through a cathartic psychological ordeal that is akin to the Greek dramas that we receive oracles in and that drives the narrative experience of the hero forward and finally reveals itself in understanding. So that is the catharsis kind of pattern associated with missing time and hypnosis. This is a psychological ordeal. It is a rite of passage. It deals with vision in the way that rites of passage deals with vision. So let's talk about missing dream time. So missing dream time. Everybody, every night has a dream. And generally, we don't remember them, right? We have about 3 or 4 REM dreams every night. Maybe we remember like 3 or 4 dreams a week, that sort of thing. But every single night, every day, you have 1 to 8 hours of missing time. And this is actually missing time. We know from the examples of the dream yogis and the lucid dreamers that you can actually maintain consciousness from waking to dreaming, from dreaming to waking. This is actually possible. I've experienced aspects of it throughout the night and throughout the sleep cycle phase. So what is happening to those 1 to 8 hours? It is not assumed. This is not the natural state. This might not be the natural state of human existence, is to forget that we're dreaming every night. This might be a strange situation we are in because of certain external factors. And I say when we look to the empires of colonialism, that is actually the factor. The empires of colonialism and materialism is the factor that distinguishes our Western culture that forgets about dreams every night and other intact shamanic dreaming cultures that respect the dream time. And I think you can think of several of them, but the Aborigines of Australia are a really good example. And it would be very interesting to see if they actually consider the time when you fall asleep and wake up to be missing, like we consider it to be missing from our experience, right? Anyways, these experiences at night are highly bizarre. These REM dreams are highly bizarre. They involve interactions with non-human intelligences, magical creatures. They yield knowledge about the world in ways that define space-time. It's important to know about 8% of dreams are exotic in nature, meaning they have these qualities. This isn't made up statistics. This is a representative sample of dreams. They defy space-time. The dreams are sources of scientific discovery. We've talked about this. René Descartes, often revered as father of the scientific method, started his inquiry that led to our understanding of Cartesian worldviews from 3 strange dreams, right? We know that historic moments are shifted from one possibility to another through the mediation of dream experiences. So that's really important. And also, dreams do involve things like existential terror. They are nightmarish experiences that reminds us very much like the abduction experience and abduction narratives put forward by the hypnotists of the last century. So consequence here is that the application of mindfulness increases awareness, recall, and insight, right? So when we apply mindfulness through lucid dream practices, we increase awareness, we increase dream recall, and we actually increase insight into the nature of our experience. And this is such a potent aspect of lucid dreaming that lucid dreaming is being taught to people in psychotic conditions to help them understand and gain insight about the reality of their psychotic experience, and it resolves it. It's a treatment that seems to be effective and non-harmful. And so that's really important to know, that through the dream experience, we can resolve our experience of terror into healing, insight, and transformation, and particularly for the earth, because we as a society and in the context of the earth are in a nightmarish experience. All right, so missing time is dreamlike. About half of UFO and ET contact actually happens in and around night. It's sometimes indistinguishable from the dream state. So lucid dreams, sleep paralysis, out-of-body experience, I would say psychedelic states and ET contact share similar psychological states that have neurological correlates that we kind of understand and have measured. So all of these phenomena look very similar from one point of view, and they all seem sort of to be expressions or stations along certain spectrums or dimensions of measurement of these states. It's important to know that ET contact is highly strange. So Jacques Vallée, in his description of the 6 layers of effects of UFO and ET encounters, lists the anti-physical effects. So the first layer is like the physical effects. Oh, there's crop circles. Oh, there's radiation. Oh, you see them in the sky, that sort of thing. The anti-physical effects are, oh, bilocation happens, telepathy happens, a lot of weird stuff happens, contractions of space-time happen. And these are actually very much similar to quantum effects. So the quantum effects of wave-particle duality, parallel reality type experiences of action at a distance. So these are manifestations at a macroscopic level of quantum effects. And this happens in ET contact and UFO sightings in kind of the waking state, and in the dream state. So in the ET contact UFO context, it's called high strangeness. It's measured as high strangeness. In the dreamscape, scientists measure this as bizarreness. They call it a bizarreness factor or something like that. So they measure the dream experience along these different scales of bizarreness. I'm just saying that the ET contact and high strangeness and the bizarreness factors, they look and sound exactly the same, and they correspond almost one-to-one with quantum effects that are paradoxical to the materialist worldview. Finally, I will point out that missing time is often remembered to contain catastrophic visions sent to inspire ecological action. This is the outcome that John Mack sees with his clients, is they shift into a more ecological worldview and they start doing stewardship activities. The same thing is seen with the Beyond UFO study of 4,000 experiencers. They all seem to increase some capacity for spiritual connection, of love of other people, of caring for others, and especially caring for the earth. So they are very similar experiences, and I kind of deduce from the phenomenological similarity of the dream experience and the ET contact experience that they are actually one and the same phenomenon expressed in two different ways, right? So experiencers think of missing time like a dream. So Dolores Cannon in her book Custodians says, in my work, many people do not report any actual physical contact with aliens or sightings of craft. Instead, they are often bothered by strange and unusually vivid dreams. In his book, Missing Time, Bud Hopkins says, a probable abduction is a sighting in which several clues suggest the likelihood of abduction. These include the witness's awareness of a time lapse or presence of physical marks or wounds after such an experience. He goes on to say, and it looks like I didn't copy this in very well, that there are dreams associated with these experiences. And in Abduction by John Mack, he writes, we are interested in how the experiencer has dealt with the powerful feelings that came up during the session, additional memories that surface, and how they are managing what I call ontological shock of the abduction events. For until the powerful reliving that has occurred during the hypnosis session, the abductee may still have clung to the possibility that these experiences are dreams or some sort of curable mental disorder. The denial never disappears altogether, and a shock may recur even after several hypnosis sessions. So if you check out the evidence and indication lists that I've put forward in the presentation on the evidence associated with missing time, you'll see that most of the lists include the presentation of dream, the abduction as a dream experience. And so that's very important to know, that the experiencers themselves first present this material as a dream, and it's only through the intervention of researchers who hold the understanding that they can uncover objective historic memories. It's only until the experiencer interacts with this third-party hypnotist, that they go, it's something more than a dream, and it has this ontological significance as a historic objective event. I'm saying that statement, the historic objective event, as reliving or regressing to memory or enhancing memory or something like that, is actually a worldview placed upon the experiencer, and that if we took experiencers at their word, they are having dreams. What does that mean about dreams? Well, that means dreams can happen during the day, that they're hyper-real experiences, that they're more real than waking world, that they involve macroscopic quantum effects, that they can go backwards and forwards in time. There's all sorts of things that are implied by this. But if we go back to what people are actually saying, these are dreamlike experiences. And if we expand our own perception about the world and about dreams, then we would be more in alignment with the ethics of dream work, more in alignment with respecting experiencer authority. If we say, yes, those were dream experiences. And isn't it amazing that dream experiences can express in historic ways sometimes, and ontologically strange ways at other times, and that you can reinterpret and re-experience these potent missing time experiences in multiple different contexts, and you don't have to be bound by this materialist notion, this objective notion, that you can move into this different realm of experience. If we said that, then our world would be much more different, and I would think that the trauma associated with these events may be relieved in a much deeper way than having these experiencers have their process be halfway interrupted by the hypnotist's reliance on the objective-subjective duality and their insistence that these events, these missing time events, are historic events that generate physical memory. All right. So that was a lot, but we should get into definitions. What are dreams? Dreams are generally understood to be a mental experience at night. Oftentimes we think of them associated with REM, which is rapid eye movement, which is a phase in the sleep cycle. Technically, dreams are defined within multiple dimensions, such as the waking and sleeping dimensions of recall and the content. So hallucinations, daydreams, fantasy dreams, night dreams, out-of-body experiences, all these things exist on a continuum. Do you remember it? Do you not remember it? How is the data presented is another continuum. So a dream needs to be referenced within this spatial, this multiple dimension orientation. So that's really important to know. And it includes nocturnal dreams, daydreams, hallucinations, hypnotic experience, and maybe life itself. So life is but a dream. And I say, actually, if we take these experiences and experiencers at the word, they have a dreamlike experience of a realm that's hyper real, that tells them things about the nature of reality and consciousness, right? And that life is something like a dream. Yeah, let's just go with that and see where that leads us. So let's talk about sleep cycles in REM. So there are several recognized phases to the sleep cycle. One is the hypnagogic phase. This is going into the sleep world. This is going into sleep onset. There may be generations of hallucinations of auditory and visual hallucinations. Lucid dreamers use this phase to actually construct the world of their dreams that they then step into. There's a sleep onset phase, and then it goes down into non-REM and REM. So REM is rapid eye movement. Non-REM is not that. It's a more stable sleep. The dreams happen in both phases, which is important to know. And then there's this sense of coming up and out of the dream state. And so you might be familiar with that in waking up. So it's important to know that dreams and cognition happen throughout the night. So dreams and cognition happen throughout the night. It's not just in REM sleep. So the wake-induced lucid dreaming happens with working with a hypnagogic state. We know that there are differences between non-REM and REM dreams, and that generally it's construed through the bizarreness factors. So many REM dreams are bizarre, not so many, but still a lot of non-REM dreams are bizarre. And there's also dream yogis who represent experiences called like clear light dreams. And so this is a sense of almost mystical union with the indivisible light of consciousness that exists throughout all experiences. And so in that way, there are dreams and cognition and experiencing happening throughout the night. And so it's important to know that there are various physiological capacities that shift throughout the various states of sleep. So we see that there is the body actually becomes paralyzed in certain states, and that leads to sleep paralysis experiences. When the mind is awake, the body is asleep, that sort of thing. There's implications in terms of memory consolidation, actually. So how the physical brain consolidates and encodes memory happens differently at different phases. And there's also the ability to be perceptive and engaged in cognition, but not necessarily through the rigid categories of perception that we are used to, but is a much more fluid way, which accounts for the REM phase bizarreness of dreams. A very, very important aspect of dreams in this context is psionic dreaming. And so what is psionic dreaming? It is any dream that has a psi capacity to it. Psi is it comes from psychology, psi. So that is of the mind. And it generally refers to a parapsychological, extrasensory, telepathic, action at a distance sort of thing. Psi phenomena is real. And so there's been studies conducted by the US government about psi, and then also meta-analyses and analyses of those. Basically, the conclusion since the 90s is that there is so much statistical evidence that psi does exist at a weak but significant effect that we shouldn't waste any money on studying whether or not this exists, but should actually devote and invest into our deeper understanding of psi. In a representative sample by Krippner and Faith of dreams, 8.1% were rated to be exotic in some way, meaning that they are shared dreams, telepathic, visitation dreams, precognitive, so that they are involving these sort of non-local, almost quantum phenomena. There are also meta-analyses of dream telepathy tests that indicate psi is very real in dreams. So meta-analyses just brings together all of the tests that have been performed about dream telepathy and looks at them in a rigorous way. And they say, yeah, actually there is a signal for telepathy in dreams. Right? So what are the types of psionic dreams? There's lucid dreams, meaning you're aware of your dreams and you have some level of control. There's precognitive dreams, meaning you're predicting the future or receiving prophecy. There's telepathic dreams, meaning thoughts are transferred at a distance. There's shared dreaming, where you and someone else are sharing a shared dream space where you can talk about the details after the fact and find correlations in like dream reports. There's visitation dreams where ghosts or ETs or other entities visit you. There's also remote viewing and out-of-body experiences that are accessible in dreams. I would say actually that the sleep paralysis phase is something like a psionic dream phase, as well as abduction. Actually, abduction would be a class of psionic dreaming. Life itself, I would say, is an example of psionic dreaming. That's one of the deductions I have here. And if you're curious about that, I would invite you to investigate some of these highly strange psi phenomena that we're talking about. So I want to talk about how dreams can be ontologically real in specific ways. And one of the best ways to do that is ground this in Western kind of colonial culture. And we look back to the Greeks as the father, as the mother of this kind of culture we're living in terms of our mind and philosophy. The ancient Greek god of both medicine and dreams is Asclepius, and you might know him through the sigil, through the sign that we call the caduceus, and it is the snake twining up a staff. And so you might recognize him in the symbol of medicine we use today. And he had all these ancient healing temples called Asclepions, and people would go there when they needed healing. And so they would travel to the Asclepion, they would have a conversation with a priest. The priest would invite them into a purification ritual. Then they would go through a process of dream incubation, meaning they're asking Asclepius to show up in a dream for healing, insight, and transformation. They then have the experience, and so sometimes they might have the experience of a dog or a snake that were associated with Asclepius, because he is understood to be a civilizing shapeshifter, right? And that's important if you know the ET lore. He's a civilizing deity that is shapeshifter between snake, dog, human as a beautiful youth or a wise old man. So one of his forms would show up in the dream. You might actually have a dream of Asclepius, the physician, healing you. You might wake up and see a dog licking you, and that is understood to be one and the same experience of healing. At the morning, you might have the dream. You might be healed already, or you might have a dream that you take to the priest and they would interpret it for you and give you actions to do. Regardless of the prescription for action, there was a commitment to offer a thank offering testimony. So it's a commitment to a thank offering testimony. That might be donation to the priest. That might be writing your testimony on the wall. That might be establishing a temple in your own region, something like that. But there was a principle of if you didn't give a thank offering, if you didn't offer testimony in a way that was public, that the healing may not actually hold, or in some cases, there were actual commitments given by the supplicant to build a temple. They go back home, they totally forget about it. 6 months later, Asclepius shows up, says, hey, you said you were going to do this, you didn't do it. I'm taking the healing back. He takes the healing back. And then the person goes and actually builds the temple. They get the healing back. That sort of thing happens. So this expression, this verbal expression, I'm saying is a model for the testimony that abductees are offering from the hypnotic experience. So I'm saying that the hypnotic experience is actually not memory enhancement, it's a dream incubation. And our model for dream incubation has to come from Asclepion Rites. This is where it's defined in our Western culture. And that has a component of sharing testimony afterwards for the healing to take place. And so that involves and invokes what we might recognize as an observer effect from the quantum physics we've been talking about. So completing the thank offering testimony has ontological significance regarding the contents of the dream experience, which is expressed through the healing of the supplicant. I want to talk about dramatic oracles as an example of dream experience. So the oracles, oftentimes in terms of our hero's journey story, right? They are dreamlike expressions based upon an intention for wisdom or connection with a greater non-human world. The oracle inspires a hero's action to do something or avoid something. The hero takes that action, and then comedic or tragic results happen based upon the action. If it's good, it's comedic. If it's bad, it's tragic. The thing around the drama is that we can see from the third-party perspective the relationship of the oracle, the actions, the knowing and not knowing associated with it. So the interpretation of the oracle is a multidimensional thing, yet observation on that thing drives the narrative action forward in a particular way, and thereby it has ontological significance. So when we receive prophecy, it is actually not an invitation to knowledge, but an invitation to action that has ontological significance. I want to also talk about Native American dream sharing practices. So when we look to shamanic cultures and intact cultures before the influence of colonialism and empires, we see behavior and models for dream sharing within a community. And precognitive dreams have a special etiquette depending upon which community and culture you're in. So you might have a precognitive or prophetic dream. You might speak aloud that prophecy, that dream experience, to dissipate that dream's ontological power, right? So you're like, oh my God, I had a dream that I was sick, and you might tell everyone. You might also reenact that misfortunate dream to prevent that misfortune from happening, or you might keep it silent. You might keep it silent because you want the dream to happen or you don't want to invite it. So speaking and acting within various observational configurations has ontological significance, and it depends on the culture you're at. So it depends on the consciousness you have. But if you believe that speaking will bring it into existence, it will bring it into existence. If you don't believe it and you keep it quiet, that has a similar ontological significance. So in that way, we know that dream sharing and speaking testimony between individuals has capacity to change futures or timelines or the structure of this world in some way. So dreams are real. There appears to be a significant relationship between dreams and dreamlike experiences, speaking about such experiences, and the reality of the message or the contents of those experiences. So in the case of the Asclepion, in the case of dramatic oracle, and in the case of dream sharing, we know that speaking about it has an impact on the nature of the expression in the objective world of those non-dual experiences we call dreams. So let's talk a little bit about how this relates to missing time, how this relates to hypnosis practice. So there's a thing I'm terming something like shamanic ontology. Ontology is a word that we are using because of Dr. John Mack. He had this phrase, ontological shock. Ontological shock is understood to be one of the mechanisms whereby the missing time experience may actually happen. So we lack the concepts for the understanding of what happens in that missing time experience. It also produces a sense of dissonance between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. There's a lot of stuff that can happen there. So just know that ontology means the logic of beingness. So ontology means the logic of beingness. It can mean how things are expressed into beingness. It can also mean how we understand the different categories of beingness. So I'll just read from Mac's book, Passport to Cosmos. I've used the term ontological shock to describe the experience that many abductees go through at the moment when they can no longer deny what they have undergone is in some way real. Even though abductees are quite capable of distinguishing their experiences from dreams, they may still call them dreams rather than facing more threatening possibilities. So in that way, with Passport to Cosmos, Mac puts out this notion that there is a greater movement from being an individual to being something like a shaman in relating to the non-human worlds and to advocating for the earth, actually. So that's really important to know. Shamanic dreaming has certain qualities. This list is put out by Laughlin and Rock. This is sort of under the framework of core shamanism, which is an anthropological study of these shamanic cultures, seeing what happens across cultures. So shamanic dreaming, these are the characteristics of shamanic dreaming. We know that dreams are real. So they observe that dreams are another dimension of reality in which entities, forces, and places that are normally invisible during waking consciousness become visible. There's a distinction between big and little dreams. That might be wish fulfillment dreams, that might compared with prophetic dreams, something like that. Shamans are specialists in invoking, having, and interpreting big dreams. So that is why you might relate to a shaman, why you might do shamanic work yourself, is to have the big dreams, right? So that's why, in terms of evoking that I'm saying hypnotists are shamans, evoking a big dream experience that relates to a real world so far. So spiritual journeying is a characteristic. Spiritual journeying is a characteristic. Dreaming and having visions are commonly conceived as polyphastic peoples, as the separation of the soul or spiritual body from the material body. So here we've got the material body, the soul goes off and dream experience to have a real experience. So oneirocriticism is another faculty of shamanic dreaming. This is the ability to interpret dreams and shaman playing the role of the interpreter or as a community, that sort of thing. Another characteristic is the control of dream experience. So there is an indication that shamans are masters of and control dream experience. And so again, this is the notion of relating to the hypnotist as a shaman in a dream space. We've evoked a dream space together. We're relating it together, interpreting it together, and calling for specific actions. And so that is why you might relate to a hypnotist. You're actually doing a shamanic activity of dream time as opposed to reliving memory or recovering memory. There is a dream calling that is oftentimes associated with shamanic dreaming cultures, saying that shamans and people who would perform these roles receive their initial calling to that role by a way of profound big dreams in which they encounter spiritual entities that give them power and instruction. And if you are wondering about my experience with that, because I am talking about shamanic dreaming and serving in this role for our greater Western kind of consensus reality culture by bringing forward this inquiry into the academic literature, you need only look to my testimony that I've put forward about my ET contact experiences through dreams, and also my engagement with dream space through the ritual activity of that's transcribed in the Book of Galactic Light, that is based on the ritual working of angelic communication put forward by Dr. John Dee, the coiner of the term British Empire. So this is really actually active and meaningful in this world today, and that I am embodying this tradition for you, and I'm bringing these intellectual and academic ideas forward primarily by way of my own personal initiation into interaction with non-human intelligences through my dreams. I've received this dream calling. I'm telling you that these experiences are shamanic in nature and that this is the best lens to look at the missing time experience. It is not the one of memory regression. That is objectifying of the individual, that's objectifying of the earth, that's objectifying of the other, that's objectifying of yourself. Rather, this experience of dreaming, of missing time as a dream, is an invitation to participate in the unfolding of an incredible narrative, an incredible story within this world today. Anyways, dreaming as a transpersonal experience is the final characteristic of a shamanic dreaming culture. And these authors observe that for polyphastic dreaming people may be considered a transpersonal. Dreaming may be considered a transpersonal experience, that is, an experience of going beyond or transcending the individual ego, self, personal personality, and personal identity. And so I can testify that is the case, actually. And when you relate to a lot of the missing time experiences, people will understand that they are communicated about transpersonal things, their identities. There are beings that say, hey, you were this in your past life. This is what will happen. This is who we are. We are a collective. There's a whole bunch more that's happening than just what's a drama between the personas. So worldviews are defined through shamanic dreaming. Whether we like it or not, it is important to know that even though we are an arrogant culture that assumes control of the objective world, that our actual worldview comes through something like shamanic dreaming. Again, that's important to recognize that the scientific method came up and out of inspiration of dreams by René Descartes. Now, if we go all the way back to the time of Plato and Socrates, they were inspired by interactions with non-human intelligences through a dream-like state that was induced by the shamanic peoples that held the Eleusinian mysteries and provided the ergot, the psychedelic ergot that induced these dreamlike visions that brought Socrates into connection with the non-human intelligence he called daimonic in nature. So let's just read this brief paragraph from a recent paper about eco-cosmologies and shamanic dreaming. So eco-cosmologies are indigenous worldviews, knowledge systems, and life worlds relating the human intrinsically with the non-human world, the cosmos, and the other than human spheres such as the earth, trees, animals, river, mountains. These worldviews and local knowledge systems are transmitted through shamanic dreams and dialogical, ecological ritual practice. So in the case of shamanic cultures, and in this case we're thinking of, tribal people that have a specific relationship with that tree there, that mountain there, and there's rituals that unfold and communicate the rich history and mythology of those places. I'm saying that there are a class or an experience of shamanic dreaming that reveals this worldview and local knowledge system at a Gaia level, at an Earth level, in the context of a galactic community, in a galactic yet local knowledge system. And this is unfolding through the missing time experience. So let's talk about hypnosis as a dream experience. So there are several theories related to missing time. So what is missing time? So the current theories of missing time involve the repression of trauma, alien mind control, and ontological shock. And so there's this notion that a historic event happened within the missing time experience that the hypnotee and hypnotist need to uncover by way of what? And so in this case, we think it's we unrepress trauma, right, through creating a relaxation of the sensor, the persona, the ego, or there's alien mind control happening, and we relax that through hypnotic suggestion, or there's an ontological shock, meaning that there are concepts that the experience itself implies that our concepts and worldview do not serve, and therefore there's dissonance in the experience and repression of the experience. So all of these things may be happening. right? So these are the current assumptions. Every single hypnotist that works with missing time has put forward the notion that it involves something like reliving or regressing to the place and time of memory. I did a survey of all the hypnotists associated with missing time and the abduction experience. There's about 266 cases that I see are published associated with these, and it's done by about 10 or so hypnotists that all believed that there was some level of reliving of memory. The only hypnotists that don't necessarily believe in memory enhancement are John Mack and Dolores Cannon. And so that's really important to know. So the assumptions that are baked into these theories are that missing time was a historical event, that something objectively noble happened, right? That we can know what happened, and that hypnosis enhances memory or the capacity to remember in some way. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about missing time. I say every single one of these hypnotists, everyone who has talked about missing time and hypnosis in this way is getting it wrong, but it's not less meaningful because of that. That's really important to know. And I'm not even saying that the testimony has come to wrong conclusions. I'm saying that there's more sophistication we need in discussing these theories of missing time and the assumptions involved. So what is that new theory? Well, missing time is something like a dream of a dream, right? So missing time is a dream experience. We don't remember missing time for the same reason we don't remember dreams at night. If we would remember our dreams, right? This is a prediction of the hypothesis. If we remember our dreams at night, if we develop consciously the capacity to maintain lucid awareness from waking to dreaming and dreaming to waking, then we would be able to remember those missing time experiences and establish lucid control, not just in the dream space of nocturnal dreams, but in the dream space of interaction with these actually non-human intelligences that perhaps have come from elsewhere. We might be able to remember that and maintain lucid awareness and establish lucid control, right? And so shamanic dreaming provides the model for missing time and its engagement. So that's the hypothesis. What are the assumptions involved with this hypothesis? Well, missing time may relate to realms outside of space-time. It may not be an objective historic fact. We're not talking about those realms. We might be moving from the particular expression of objective understanding into potentialities of the quantum state at that point. Another assumption is that the contents of missing time now are multidimensional in nature, meaning they're integral, holistic, and non-dual rather than objective. We understand, just like a dream, we may come back to interpreting the same missing time experience in different ways that lend itself to different ontological expressions, right? Another assumption is that we co-participate with what happened, is happening, and will happen, which may or may not be knowable. So we are co-participants in the missing time experience. We're co-participants in the missing time regression experience, and it may or may not be knowable, but we are actually full participants in that experience. The assumption here is that the hypnosis induces a dream state, which is psionic and worldview defining by way of the shamanic dreaming principles that I talked about. So hypnosis and missing time hypnosis, the regression state is actually the induction of another dream state to relate to that missing time and bring it into 3D expression through observer principle things, right? So the conclusion here, the final assumption that I'll put forward is that missing time may not be repressed memory at all. It may not be repressed memory at all. This is not to say that the missing time regressions or memories or whatever don't actually have a memory correlate, or it's to say that something else is happening here, right? Something else is happening here. And we know from dreams, right, if you speak about dreams in specific ways, it brings into being something or not, right? And so when we're dealing with psychic time travelers and strange spacecraft, we don't know the impact of what our words and testimony and observer effect is on that whole system. We don't know yet. We need to explore that together. So talking about missing time hypnosis, the current practice of missing time hypnosis has significant issues. So again, when we understand that missing time is, the mechanism of missing time is memory repression, and the mechanism of hypnosis or regression is memory enhancement. That's problematic. It's important to know that there are studies about memory enhancement. There is a thing called like false memory syndrome. This is a documented effect of hypnosis when you choose to establish false memories with hypnosis, right? This does happen. But it is important to note that hypnosis in service to memory enhancement behaves very, very similarly to other psi phenomenon, which is that it's used in forensic investigations, like psychics are used to discover the location of a missing person, something like that. It's actually effective in that way, but isn't effective in a repeatable process that would lend itself to a theory like we have, like hypnosis leads to memory enhancement. Well, it doesn't all the time. So we have to account for that. And it looks like psi is the accounting for that. People talk about leading questions leading to false memories. And so that's a problem, right? So just like we're generating false memories through leading questions, we might actually generate real memories with ontological significances that are challenging for us or against our worldview. So you may or may not want the expression of missing time and that potentiality of that dream space to be expressed like a prophetic dream of misfortune, right? So oftentimes it's really important to know, right? If you had a prophetic dream of misfortune, you may or may not want to speak about that depending on your own personal worldview about what speaking about it does, because it will actually invite that experience for you if you believe that to be the case. And so I wonder, what is the effect of all these negatively biased individuals who claim to be hypnotists, who don't actually have experience or training in psychology and hypnosis? And I'm thinking of Bud Hopkins, I'm thinking of David Jacobs. What is the effect of these people performing this work, providing this structure of worldview, using non-leading questions for the sake of objectivity, right? Objectivity is antithetical to the shamanic worldview, and it actually does violence to Gaia herself and does violence to the intact shamanic dreaming cultures. So it's really important to recognize that even if hypnotists are pretending to be objective, they are actually conducting violence against the earth in the objectification of you, your experience, and the earth. So this is a thing that we need to continually talk about until it's resolved. Finally, I do want to point out that experiencers are reporting dreams or dreamlike experiences at first and not abduction per se. It's only when they interact with a hypnotist, it's only when they interact with other people who have this notion of abduction that these memories concretize and become particular expressions that may then be real experiences. They may actually be real experiences. But until we understand the shift between dream to abduction, we don't know actually what that means. So we should take the experiencers at their word and say, this is a dreamlike experience. Let me now adapt my understanding of the world and dreams to account for that experience, right? Why not shift our ontology of dreams rather than shift the experiencer's understanding of their experience as a dream? So it's important to talk about hypnotic dreams because hypnosis may be more like a dream than anything else, right? There's like placebo effect, there's suggestion hypnosis, there's all sorts of different ways of hypnosis working. But it seems to me that ultimately all of that hypnosis stuff is just a singular application of the Asclepion Rites, the incubation of dream experience for the purpose of healing, insight, and transformation. Psychologically, physiologically, hypnosis involves relaxation and is a nap-like experience. Psychologically, it involves daydream-like imaginal experiences like a dream. It is both non-dual and multidimensional in nature. And like a dream, it involves worldview defining dialogue with ontological significance, meaning the conversation you have with a hypnotist really does shift your behavior, it shifts your patterns, shifts your worldview, and it shifts what actually exists in your world. So hypnosis has been shown to induce dream experiences that are like night dreams, that are like daydreams in content and quality. They simply exist on a different end of the spectrum. And it may actually use dreams as the fundamental mechanic of suggestion. The other concept I want to bring forward is that of rite of passage. Rite of passage. So how are we actually using dreams in service to the experiencer community and the missing time experience? Because I really do believe that even though there are these epistemological issues with how we understand regression hypnosis, I do believe it's actually valuable and meaningful to people. It's only when you get fixated and fetishize the objective aspects of the experience that it becomes problematic. I'm actually kind of all for maintaining the fiction, right? The fiction that it is, or metaphor that it is remembering or reliving. It's actually not, but it's somewhat of a useful way to speak about it. I actually think that what is happening in terms of the relationship with the hypnotist and relationship with relating to the possible contents of missing time experience is something more like a rite of passage. So rites of passage is a ritualized transition from one stage of life to another. In this case, it is a rite of passage regarding ontology. What is ontology? Well, ontologies define worldviews. Worldviews define reality. Experiences define ontology through dialogue. That's a little bit of a formula, but that's how it kind of works with that shamanic dreaming experience that we talked about. So we are shifting ontologies of our world. We have ontological shock. Thank you, John Mack, for that understanding. So our world needs to shift. So we seek someone out to have a dreamlike experience. It is a rite of passage from the world in which aliens don't exist to one where you are mediating the relationship between the human and non-human world, aka the extraterrestrial, through your dreamlike experience. So this is the rite of passage we're talking about when you first interact with a missing time hypnotist. And it really does inform our worldviews together. Like I said, with these 266 cases of public missing time hypnosis, that really has defined a generation of experience and experiencers that have experienced something like traumatic abduction. And I myself have had experiences that have been that of fear of these transcendent realm experiences based on the media notions like the X-Files, like the cover of Communion, very scary stuff. So it's important to know. The archetype for rites of passage involve a journey through visionary or imaginal realms. And you just need to think of the Vision Quest to be one of them. It is also like the Eleusinian mysteries I talked about in the case of Plato. As Socrates, he went to the Eleusinian mysteries, had a psychedelic, had visionary experience. So that's really much a part of it. You might have heard of ayahuasca trips. Everyone's going down to the Amazon to have these visionary experiences. So that's really what it is. It's a visionary experience. You can use other methods like shamanic drumming or hypnosis. You can work with a hypnotist who is a skilled shaman in inducing a dreamlike state and interpreting and controlling that state that's happening non-dualistically, right? Another archetype or aspect of the archetype of rite of passage is ritual death. It is ritual death or an ordeal. And so this is tied up with a shamanic dismemberment / integration process. This is imagined like Christ on the cross, Dionysus being ripped apart, Dionysian frenzies. It's also associated with Osiris and rebirth. So there's this sense of dying and being pulled apart, ego death, and then being reintegrated. And so that's really the process of ritual death and rebirth, right? That's the rite of passage. You're dying to the old self, being born to the new one. The archetypes for shamanic experience and rites of passage involve initiation into non-human communities. So that's initiation. We saw that in the shamanic dreaming characteristics is that through this process of rite of passage, you become initiated into a community that's much more than the human. It involves the animals, the plants, the trees. It involves non-human entities and things like that, like ghosts, spirits, extraterrestrials, a variety of beings, right? And it also involves a shift of role for the community. So it is shifting you when you go through these processes, right? Not everybody needs to go through a process of rite of passage associated with their missing time experience. Everybody has dreams at night. Not everybody is called to work with dreams in a shamanic way, and that's totally fine. But if you are, just know that this experience of reintegration, of reliving, of regressing back to the missing time experience is actually a rite of passage experience that involves visionary states of consciousness that you're thinking are your memories, that you're thinking are reliving those experiences, but actually are a different order of visionary experience, which has ontological significance, which may actually psionically relate to what happened in the missing time experience. But ultimately, it is to shift your role within community to be one of a mediator between the human and non-human worlds, generally for the benefit of your community, for healing, insight, and transformation. And that's it. And that's why we see the shift from being self-centered to being focused on earth, others, love, when we look at the experiencer testimony, when we look to the work of Dr. John Mack, who really was open to the sense of shamanic initiation or shamanic journey within this experience, and when we see the traumatic aspects with such people as David Jacobs or Bud Hopkins, who didn't necessarily have a worldview that accommodated the more intact shamanic dreaming practices that we see all over the globe, right? So therefore, hypnosis may be best understood as a dream journey serving as a rite of passage for the transformation of ontologies and worldviews. Right? So the ideal outcome of all of this interaction is a mindfulness practice. I want you to engage in a mindfulness practice. The reason why is because we see that when you engage in mindfulness practice, you increase lucid dreaming, you increase dream recall, you can remember and control your experience. And the reason why you're doing this is so that you can be of service to yourself and others for the benefit of communities in the earth. So missing time does not have to be missing time. If we understand that missing time is a species of dream experience, we can look to the general example of our dream recall and lucid dreaming to deduce that it is a particular condition of consciousness, but not necessarily an inevitable or uncontrollable condition of consciousness. Right? So I want you to have a mindfulness practice, and that helps you realize the dreamlike nature of your experiences so that you can choose a path that reduces suffering and harm, often through the integration of shadow and nightmare aspects. And so this is really an important thing to understand about the nature of dreaming and its relationship to waking is that the emotional affect of dreams has a heightened emotional valence, meaning there's stronger positive and negative emotions, and it's often scary and often has the repressed aspects of our psyche in it. But that when we relate to those nightmarish aspects of our own psyche through lucid dream practices of opening up, of confronting and of integrating those nightmarish aspects, there is a transformation that happens. You see that those nightmare aspects in your dream were actually you and actually are holding wisdom from deeper non-local aspects of your consciousness, right? And so when we look to lucid dreaming and see that pattern that you can remember missing time, you can control what happens, you can relate to nightmarish aspects as yourself, and they transform into sources of wisdom, healing, and integration that bring you into relationship with a kind and good relationship with the earth, we can deduce that all those scary aliens that are engaged in all of these procedures and the nightmarish aspects of our missing time experiences, we can actually deduce that when we relate to those in a kind and open way, in a way that confronts them and also invites integration, we will see that we are them and they are us, and that will wake us up to a deeper relationship with Gaia that is kind and supportive to our role as Earth stewards. Right? This is in line actually with the data. This is in line with the data of what happens when you interact with non-human intelligences associated with UFOs and UAPs. We see in the free survey of 4,000 individuals, there's a huge amount of lifestyle change that happens. John Mack talks about it a lot in Passport to the Cosmos. There's so much more that happens. And then finally, I want you to respect the authority of the dreamer and experiencer, right? And that's ultimately respecting yourself. And I want you to, it's an ethical principle of dream work to respect the dreamer regarding the interpretation and significance of this dream experience, right? And so if anyone says, oh, this is an objective experience, this is not respecting, it's not ethical, right? Like, you are the interpreter of that ontological significance and the significance of the dream, right? And ultimately, we know that it is going to be multidimensional and non-dual, so that you can have a regression on a missing time experience and have something be meaningful. You can have a regression next week and contradict every single historical fact that came out of it, because that's not the point. The point here is a relationship and adding observations to the experience of missing timing and having that ongoing dialogical relationship with this whole experience that's happening inside of dream and missing time that is some way mediating the human and non-human worlds. So that was a lot to talk about. This whole theory of missing time and working with missing time is so important. I think it is one of the most important things we could be talking about now, and that's why I'm writing a book about it. And this book is going to cover all of the theories. A lot of it, these presentations are chapters of this book, and a lot of it's already recorded, and I'm now going to shift into the editing phase. We're going to have a survey of the evidence for missing time. We're ideally going to include the extraordinary stories, interviews I did with Preston Dennett, who's a storyteller, Ray Hernandez, who's a researcher, the executive director of the Free Survey, and Candace Craw-Goldman, who is founder of the BQH, Beyond Quantum Healing methodology. So I asked them all about how to relate to extraordinary stories in this way. So it's helping to provide context for relating to stories in different ways. Then there's going to be a section on practice. How do we actually practice hypnosis in accordance with this new theory and hypothesis that is respectful of these things? And so I have basic theory, suggestions, energy practices, scripts for self-hypnosis and working with others. I'm going to present case studies as well. I've got some very interesting case studies, including myself, that have corroborating witness testimony, photographs, and other interesting things. So that's about 14 case studies that I'll include. I kind of think maybe I'll get up to 19, which was the number of case studies, but Hopkins included in his book, but I may not. And then I'll have conclusions around the epistemology of missing time and missing time hypnosis. So you have guidelines about how to speak about it and how to relate to it in ways that are in line with this new and rather old theory about missing time. A section on ethics, what is an ethical principle, actually. And we really need to understand this, because if we don't get this right, we will actually create martyrs. Like, the whole system creates martyrs, like Socrates, Giordano Bruno, Christ, and the entire indigenous populations that have been impacted by colonialism. So if we don't get the ethics right, it's got some really significant implications. So it's a big section on ethics. And then etiquette, like how can we talk about these things in everyday conversations that are not stigmatizing, that raise the credibility of this field and things like that. And finally, there's going to be a bibliography about all of these experiences. If you're curious about missing time, if you have a missing time experience, if you have documentation about missing time, you want to share a theory, history, or review chapter, collaborate on that, I'm very, very open. If you'd like to just explore working with hypnosis or dream work with me, please do email me at daniel@cosmicdreamsanctuary.org, and we can get in touch that way. So thank you for going on this journey with me. I know that dreams are a triggering topic for some people. ET contact is a triggering topic for people. Hypnosis is a taboo topic. And I know that I am presenting a theory that missing time is just a dream, right? That has often been a thing, like missing time, oh, it's just a dream, or hypnosis, oh, it's just a dream. That has been a really denigrating hypothesis about what these things are, and that has devalued your experience of dream and missing time or whatever. But really, I'm saying that it's just, don't worry, it's just a dream. We know how to relate to dreams. Dreams are kind to us. They lead us to healing, insight, and transformation. And we know that if we stopped listening to media, the media empires and the science empires and the military industrial complex empires and all those empires, if we tune that out and just tune back into the wisdom of nature herself, she will initiate us into processes of knowing. She herself will initiate us into processes of knowing that we can embody this greater connection with the non-human world and human world, that we can serve as a mediating role between human and non-human world through dreams, that we can actually be kind to the earth. That is why she's waking us up, is so that we can live in alignment. We can shift the dream that we're dreaming together. The American dream is a disgusting dream. It is a disgusting dream because it is based upon genocides of indigenous populations. It's based upon the objectification of people and things and places. It is leading to an environmental experience of eco-anxiety, ecological destruction. And I say that the shamans of our culture, the societies of endorsed medical industrial complex psychologists, they are not representing the actual role that needs to happen, which is that shamans and dreamers need to stand up and define our reality and bring us into relationship with the earth in this much deeper way. That is actually what's being called for here and now. That all you need to do in order to have contact and dreams, to understand your missing time experience, to do any of this stuff, you can listen to me, of course. I love to share my information, but you actually literally just need to practice mindfulness, mindful presence, being sufficient in who you are and what you are, and you will discover that you yourself are earth, and that earth herself is communicating through these dream experiences and inviting us into a deeper community within all of these different realms of experience, the extraterrestrial, the intradimensional, all of these things. This is what's coming up because that's who she is. She's connected in this multidimensional way. Gaia is connected in this multidimensional way. You connect with Gaia through mindfulness and dream. And that's it. And that's one of the reasons why we don't remember our dreams at night, is because we have been very, very aggressive to the source of our own consciousness and experience, which is the earth. We've been objectifying her. That, I would say, is the principle behind missing time. It's the principle behind a lot of these things. And we are not actually repressing traumatic experiences with alien beings in the missing time experience. We are repressing the cognitive dissonance that we are experiencing within the so-called American dream. This is so cognitively dissonant that we are objectifying and destroying the earth, that of which we come, right, of which we are. That is so dissonant that there is such anxiety, shock, trauma associated with it, that we are repressing that. That's what we're repressing in the missing time experience. We're not repressing much of the, the scary things that we often think about. So that's what's really going on. And we can work through the missing time by being mindful, by relating to the earth in this way. Thank you for going on this journey. This is a really big journey to go on, and it's really important, as you know. We can really just shift the balance here. We can really dream a different dream, and that will simply require each and every one of us to tune into who we are, and that is Earth herself having a dream through these different silly sense organs we call human bodies, right? And human personas. And that's really, really welcome. Personas, the science endeavors, all of this human activity that we love to do that has led to the American dream. All this stuff that we're doing is totally fine. It's just our orientation. It's just the objectification. It's just a couple shifts of consciousness that all of these experiences are asking us to do. And once we just go, oh, I'll be present with my experience moment to moment, I'll start to explore this habit of being present no matter what, right? All that's all that needs to happen. And then things start shifting. Lucid dreams start happening. Connection to Earth starts happening. Just try it out. I invite you to try it out. So once again, thank you for this. Thank you for being on this journey. And I just pray that you dream well.